Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to the Dynamic Decisions podcast, where we explore the strategies that drive successful decision making in the world of business. Why? Because the best decisions come from great conversations. I'm your host, Tisha Cable, CEO of C Model Data, and today we have an inspiring leader in sustainability and the circular economy. And my favorite thing, urban innovation. Her name is Yael. She is the co-founder and chief commercial officer at Tulu, which is based in New York. She's been leading for over 4 years this usage economy platform that leverages IoT-based units and an app to provide urban tenants with last foot access to essential products, promoting a lifestyle of owning less and living more. So her work has been recognized by Harvard Business School, the New York Times, and she's in Forbes 30 under 30. So here we go. Welcome to the show, Yael. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time to share with our audience today. Would you tell us more about you, more about Tulu, all the good stuff?
Hey, Tisha, thank you so much for having me today. I love that intro. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. I think it's such an important topic, dynamic decision making. And I'd love to kind of introduce myself. So as you mentioned, my name is Yael. I'm the Chief Customer Officer for Tulu. I oversee our entire customer operations, our post-sale relationships. And I've been an entrepreneur for 7 years. And prior to starting Tulu, I was also an environmental student and actually a waitress. Tulu is my first real big job. Started at 25. I'm 32 now, so 7 years in the making. But it's been quite a journey. I think startups and entrepreneurship is the best tool for crazy self-growth. So I'm excited to dive into it.
Let's do it. So Tulu is a usage economy platform, right? That combines IoT tech and this sort of mission to help urban tenants to live more sustainably, specifically by owning less. What do you believe is the most critical element for organizations like yours to succeed when they're trying to create meaningful impact and also business growth?
So Tulu is on a mission to redefine the way we consume things, and we're doing it by offering an access model, access over ownership. And I think when a startup or when a company is trying to tackle such a big goal, it's really important to go back to first principles and always trying to understand what is it that we're trying to do. And we're always saying we found the best way right now to do what we're trying to do. But if in 2 years drones are a thing or robots are a thing, we'll try that as well. Because what we want to do is we want to make it really convenient for people to rent things. Today, if you're telling a student or a young professional, you should really rent more things that you're using on a daily basis, they really don't have much choice. You know, it's very hard to go to a store and find the service. And Tulu is trying to make that extremely convenient, extremely easy by partnering with landlords and buildings, specifically luxury residential buildings, large residential buildings, and student housing. And the idea is to always stay obsessed with the end user. So for us, we want to be where our end customer is, which is students, young professionals. So I would really recommend companies that are trying to solve a problem to really get obsessed with the customer they're trying to serve, but also to keep going back to, is this the best way to do what we're doing? Even if you've spent 3 years building something out, stay fresh and stay ruthless in the way you ask questions.
Ruthless in the way you ask questions. I like it. And I think that that's the only way to stay close, because otherwise, if we're not asking those questions, the right ones at the right time, then we end up far off from where it is that we intend to be. Because sometimes our gut, while it is usually indicative of our expertise, it gives us a place to hold on to, it's not always in tune to the exact times that one is focused with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We work with OKRs, which is something Google works with and Intel and many other companies. And what we've seen is that the quarters where we took time to really define what is it that we're trying to achieve, we've had OKRs that just stayed with us for many, many months because we spent so much time defining them. And I think it's not a shame to have a plan and toss it out the window if you feel like you're just doing busy work and you're not really moving the needle. And people have it and companies have it too. And it's important to pause and ask the right questions.
Yeah, good stuff. How do you actually balance the technological innovation that you're working on with social and environmental impact, especially because that's what Tulu wants to achieve?
I think they have to be married these days. I think that we actually have a chance in making an impact in the climate world because of AI and because of technology. Whereas in the future, making assessments, trying to do different frameworks, it's been much harder if you're not an environmental professional because this information is not that accessible. And I think today, both using machine learning and also, regular GPT forms, you're able to actually access a lot of information with technology. I think technology is one of the tools for Tulu. It's definitely a big, big portion of the business. But just like any other business, you need to have the very basic things well articulated. In that sense, sustainability, we are trying to tackle a part of sustainability. We think there's an overconsumption problem. We think that our cities are becoming the most important environment for people, and we need to make those cities better. And it starts with the individual building. So we wanted to make landlords a stakeholder in that. And by really understanding in sustainability, what is it that we're trying to do? We're trying to reduce waste in that sense by partnering with landlords and putting our machines wherever residents live. So you can't really avoid the fundamental questions when you're designing something. Technology these days can just help accelerate it.
That lends itself to this concept of like, these are the strategic decisions that you're actually making and that because they're super essential for you to find that balance. It's also going to be essential for you to scale. You agree?
I 100% agree. And I also think that we have the privilege of being a small team, and it's a privilege to be a lean team. And the more our executives in Tulu are doing hands-on work and they're acting as an individual contributor, then they know where to incorporate AI or where to incorporate technology and how to hire better once they do it.
So you also have this extensive experience in community organizing and social ecological initiatives from urban farming to food waste education. How do you believe these grassroots experiences influence your leadership and your decision making at Tulu?
I think there's something super hopeful in being a community organizer and growing up in an NGO field. That's what I've done in my school. I was a community organizer for transportation issues, waste management issues, and you really can't pay people. So you have to use purpose as the main motive. You have to get people that are like-minded and ask them for free time and free help because there's a purpose that you offer. And I think in a startup, maybe at the beginning, we don't have a ton of resource. So you really need to focus on the purpose. And you also need to focus on how can I do more with less. So I think that really helped me. The other thing that helped me was just I like the quote that says, just because you wait to jump in the cold water doesn't make them warmer. And I think in community organizing, you are just being pushed all the time to do things you have no idea how to do. You just got to figure it out, ask for help, make mistakes. And that's a very much a startup thing as well. So without even knowing, it totally helped and shaped who I am today.
This is fantastic. So, number one, I think that a lot of people would find it beneficial to know that starting off in nonprofits and B Corps, or kind of having careers in those spaces, lends itself to understanding how to work in a shared purpose environment. And I think if we take those concepts into the larger or for-profit organizations, then you can get to a point where you're telling your leaders that it's really important that we have shared purpose and that shared purpose lives beyond just profit. I think that leaders who come out of those kinds of organizations are beneficial to
Yeah.
for-profit companies for sure.
I
Yeah.
totally agree. And I think my philosophy is that leadership can be found at any different role in a company. Specifically in Tulu, we're trying to advocate for people at any position to act like a leader, which means a leader doesn't have to be the one that makes the final decision, but you have to make decisions. And the
Yeah.
more decisions you make and back it up with data or back it up with intelligence decision making, and you come to someone who's a VP or a chief position and you tell them, hey, I made this decision, the more you're going to grow. And my NGO experience really empowered me to do that and to keep embodying leadership, even if you don't have the final say.
It's really good. The reason why that's so good is a lot of people don't understand their role as leaders. Becoming a leader is really a you thing. It's not anything that the organization in itself does for you. These are all mindset shifts and changes. These are all the ways that you decide to go about doing your work every day. That's how you become the leader. And so I like the idea that if you act like one, then where your decision making falls is the secondary. So that's really good. We mentioned it earlier. You've been recognized as a leader. This is not just you out here talking. You've done this to the point you've been recognized and you guest lecture at Parsons School of Design. How do you integrate education and thought leadership into your entrepreneurial journey to really build this culture of innovation around you? Do you think that these things come together?
For me, they do because I feel extra passionate about talking about a different way of leading, a way that has a collaborative approach to it, a way that has intuition, things that maybe in a typical leadership workshop, maybe nowadays more, but in the past, I didn't hear them very much. So I wanted to become the leader that I wanted to see out there. But I got really lucky and partnered with a few different schools around circular economy because circular economy is such a new topic. I mean, it's been around for the last 20, 30 years, but now to actually form businesses that help advance something that is actually the opposite of the linear economy, which is a more wasteful industry or a wasteful way of making things, requires a more innovative approach, but also it requires leaders that understand what it means to collaborate with each other. I try when I learn something new, I try to apply it in my own leadership skills. And I also try to have my team apply it in the way they manage their day to day and tasks. I'll give you an example. I am a lifelong learner. I listen to a ton of podcasts. And one of the most important things that I keep reminding myself is that relationships are the most important thing. And Esther Perel says the quality of your relationships will determine the quality of your life. And I think that at work, relationships are crucial. And for a long time, I would come to my office and think that, okay, we have some new people, they're just working at the company. And I've changed my mindset. And those relationships that I've invested in helped me have harder conversations, just like I would have with a girlfriend or with a friend to say, hey, what you said right now had the wrong tone to it, or maybe I misunderstood you. Can you clarify? Like the way I show up today at work is the same way I would show up in my social life. So I feel passionate about sharing the message and I feel passionate about having better leaders and communicators around me because I'm learning things and spreading them around.
I remember the day that I came to work and was like, you know what? We're not going to be switching it up here. We're going to be, this is me. This is who I am. This person is good enough to be in this workplace, speaks well enough, all the things that you could think about that sort of impact how you see yourself at work. And so I appreciate when young leaders get to that place where they realize that you are you and you bring yourself into the workplace, because then it's all about making you better over time. And when you make you better, you also improve your decision making capabilities, which will then let someone see that, and then you get the ability to move forward in the head, maybe in a more traditional sense based on that. So, yeah, you're speaking my language. I completely understand it. I love it. So
Yeah.
this is good. So as you look ahead, how do you actually envision the role of IoT and the usage economy, these platforms like yours, evolving in the urban living space? Let's think about the next 5 to 10 years. And then as you outline that, are there any key challenges or opportunities that you see for businesses and communities?
I'll break it down. What we're trying to solve is we're trying to give people access to things that they need. And right now, it's in large buildings because that's where we can have the most impact. I see us moving to different spaces in the city, whether if it's a neighborhood or a hotel, or it really doesn't matter, but where people travel and go to. And I think decision makers around the way buildings are designed should be participating in this, because when we think about the design of a building, right now we have a laundry room or a gym, or we have all those things we assume people are going to use. And we're starting to see Tulu become a synonymous name for sharing. So we want Tulu to be a standard for people to count on it and trust that it's there. I think that the way to make something a standard is to really go to market quickly enough. So for us, we're just expanding as much as we can in many big cities around the world to make it something that people can count on in their next apartment. That's the first thing we're doing. But I think there's a greater discourse around where our city are heading. Different cities like New York, San Francisco, that are prioritizing different type of designing in their communities. So maybe prioritizing more amenities and shared spaces. And I think that's where Tulu will integrate the best. But it's really time to influence decision makers around sustainability in that sense, because we can't keep designing the same buildings we've designed 50 years ago, or just make the new shiny thing without actually thinking about what has the purpose of being used. We call it functionality for the usage economy. And I think that the future city is closer than we think it is, but it needs to be people led, and it needs to be affordable, and it needs to be sustainable. And I hope to see more civic engagement from Gen Zs and millennials to let their decision makers know what they're looking for.
And it's happening because the current generation is not without saying, yo, hey, we need the following. This works for us. Even changing how the workplace happens. So it's only a matter of time before it completely changes how we live too. And so, yeah, and there are these generational differences. I'm glad you bring them up. There are these generational differences in how that you even see the future. How do you even see life? Like millennials, a number of you, you're having children later. So you're moving into these much more traditional lifestyles much later than even my generation, for example.
And women as well, because we're on average getting married later in life. We're getting
That's
married
right.
now in our late 20s, early 30s, and that's still considered early in some
Yes.
communities, in big cities. So once we postpone those big financial decisions, marriage is a big financial decision, buying a
Yes.
house is a big financial decision, we are postponing other decisions as well, and that's where
Yes.
fractional ownership can fill the gap. We have, as a generation, less resources for upfront payment, but we're more encouraged to do fractional payments, and that's where the leasing services come in very handy. But those decisions accelerate really fast in technology, and they
Mhm.
get slower when it comes to the built environment. Everything takes so much longer when it's physical, when there's a retail side to it, when there's a commercial side to it. And that's why we need startups, I think, to kind of push all the industries forward by saying, this is a trend. Let's capitalize on it. It's important. Let's take a bet here so the physical world will converge with the digital world.
Hey, so this message was for our audience. I want you to think about your own organization's approach to sustainability and innovation. What initiatives have you implemented that promote circular economy principles? Share your stories with us on LinkedIn and other social media using Dynamic Decisions podcast. Yeah, let's talk about your leadership. So your experience spans entrepreneurial ventures, climate leadership with C4 cities, and social impact roles. What are some of the strategies that you put out in the world to really build up collaboration across these really diverse initiatives that you've been responsible for?
I think that collaboration can't be a passive thing. I think that if you want to invite collaboration from your team, you need to know what you're looking for and you need to do your homework. I don't like it when people say, let's just collaborate without forming their own opinion first. So I think there's time and space. I think a CEO or a founder can say, hey, I gave this some thought, but I may have blind spots. I actually for sure have blind spots. Here's my approach. What do you think? Here's my assumptions. What do you think? Let's go test it out in the field. Let's have a few departments come in and chime in with their feedback. But I think it really matters as a leader that if you want to call in collaboration, you got to do your homework first. That's the first thing. The other thing is we know that the price of speed and the price of consistency may have imperfections in it. We rather always kind of deploy things faster before they're ready to start testing them. So you have to make sure that you have trust with your user base on some things that you will never compromise on and other things that you are going to be more experimental on. So I think also assessing what your values are, how you communicate when you collaborate, what matters, what doesn't matter. For example, if I'm asking someone to make a slideshow, I don't care what the design is for the slideshow. I don't care if the colors or the fonts. I care about the essence. I think those things to help your colleagues and your peers collaborate with you, that's a big thing in my book. I'm trying to think about other things, but I think these are the main things I'm focusing on.
Thank you for sharing. And for our audience, I want you to think about those things and share your thoughts there too. What are some of your ways of helping people to think about collaboration? What are the frameworks that you might use to really make it a much more expedient process to
Uh,
working together?
I
Yeah.
have another one.
Yes.
There is something that I've noticed, and I know that the NVIDIA CEO talks about it a lot, Jensen, about information and knowledge and making it something that's transparent along the company. I can't really ask someone to collaborate with me and be my if I have informations that they don't have. Now, of course, some information is more confidential, and I'm a founder, so I know things. But if we are really trying to collaborate here, here's the information that you need to know to participate to the best of your ability. So really making information something that the organization always have in flows, having rituals, having weekly meetings where people can just know what's going on has made such a big impact in our organization, because one of the most ongoing feedback that we've been getting is that, hey, like, we actually are not sure what's going on right now. And we've asked, like, my co-founder and I would ask each other, how do people not know what's going on? We update every week, but maybe when it's not formal or when you're not really showing the next like quarter's vision and things like that, people feel like there's maybe information that's being hidden from them. So it's a communication thing, but you really can't expect people to collaborate if you're not giving them the full information. So it's having maybe bigger meetings at times, but where people are on the same level, and then smaller one-on-ones.
Transparency, boom, is what I like to say. When someone says something that's so meaningful and so important, the future organization is a transparent organization. People get a lot of information in a lot of different places. If leaders are not careful and are not transparent, then people will find up and then develop their own set of assumptions, which will develop into how they behave in the workplace. So I love that you're already working on this, and really a good example for future leaders or leaders who are trying to think of new ways to do things, to say transparency is key. It doesn't have to be how much someone makes. You're not going to share that. But sharing other details about the organization, including the vision or the current state of metrics, these are very important things to help people to think about how they want to work with you. Okay, great. So now we're in my favorite part, which is we're going to do this little decision-making assessment. We're going to explore your decision-making style through a persona assessment. So I'm going to ask you 4 different questions. Each one of them represents a different decision-making approach. And after each one, you're going to tell me how much the way that I'm asking the question actually resonates with how you might approach a decision. You're going to use a scale of 0 to 100%. Now, you only get 100% total across all 4 areas that I'm going to cover. So we got to keep track, right, on where you are. Okay. And so there's no right or wrong answer. It's all about a little bit of fun, and hopefully you learn a little something to bring it back to your team. Here we go. The first one is called the feeler. It's a values driven leader. This persona prioritizes alignment with core values and mission, often weighing the human impact and cultural fit of decisions alongside business metrics. So when considering a new initiative or technology implementation at Tulu, I ask myself, does this align with our commitment to promoting sustainability, social inclusion, and a circular economy? Even if a more technically impressive solution might generate short-term results, I need to feel confident that we're building lasting positive impact for urban communities and the environment. So how much does approaching decisions by asking yourself that kind of value-based question resonate?
I would say I'm a feeler. I'm for sure a feeler. I would give this 30%.
Tell me a little bit about why.
I like to take a step back before a decision and look at the wholesome picture and ask, what is it that we're trying to do? Is it tactical or strategical? Can we achieve it in other ways? If we're compromising, let's put things on the table. Let's have a conversation around it. I like to break things down, give them the light of day, and not have gray zones. But I do feel like I've started the company with my co-founder with a mission, and it's important to go back to the mission and make sure that we're not forgetting it in a way.
Okay, here's your next one. It's called the planner. It's a strategic visionary. So this persona focuses on long-term implications and future-proofing decisions, always thinking several moves ahead and considering multiple scenarios. So when making strategic decisions about Tulu's platform development or partnerships, I ask myself, what are the long-term implications of this choice for urban living and sustainability over the next 5 to 10 years, I need to map out how technology, policy, and social trends will evolve to ensure that our solutions remain adaptable and impactful. So, how much of this forward thinking scenario planning approach to questioning resonates with your decisions?
I would give this 10%. I'm definitely a planner, but not a long-term one. In when it comes to business, we know where we're heading, but I do think that that's the death valley for startups. If you start thinking way ahead, everything changes really fast, and I don't recommend doing it for startups that are in their Series A, Series B. Have one vertical you're committed to, but have a lot of flexibility in the rest.
Awesome advice, I hope, for all of our startups who are in those phases. Please be listening. The next one is called the counter. It's the challenger of assumptions. So this persona naturally questions conventional wisdom and looks for contrarian opportunities, often finding success by zigging when others zag. So when evaluating new business models or technology solutions, I ask myself, what assumptions are we making about urban tenants' needs and their behaviors that might be fundamentally wrong? What are others in the sustainability and IoT space doing that we should question? I tend to dig into why certain approaches work and whether there's a more innovative method to solve problems differently. So, how much does that assumption challenging, contrarian style of questioning resonate with your process?
I think I'd give this also 10%. I definitely have contrarians on my team. I definitely have people that I count on to come with that counter offer, that challenging position. I'm not one of them. I tend to be a bit more in somewhere in between, let's take it as it is, to hey, what are we missing here? Because of the short-term planning, I do have a lot of visibility into what's happening. However, that's not my intuition to go with the counter offer.
Makes sense. And it's always that teams balance us out. So wherever you are, having someone on your team who's like, yeah, I'm that person is super important.
100%.
Okay, your last one is called the data driver. It's an evidence-based decision maker. So this one relies heavily on metrics, analytics, and concrete evidence to validate decisions, preferring proof over intuition. So before making important decisions about Tulu's growth or technology investments, I ask myself, what does our performance data tell us about user adoption, environmental impact, and business outcomes? I want to see concrete analytics that validate our strategic direction and help us optimize for maximum value. So, how much does that data driven, evidence focused approach to questioning actually resonate with how you make your strategic decisions?
I would give this 20. I am definitely in favor of data where data is easy to get. I think people may over index some data and sometimes they're not looking for the right data. So I think it's really important that if you are able to generate data, rely on it, but also stay close to what is it that you're trying to do. When
Yeah.
you're trying to launch a product at the beginning, of course, you can look for regular product market fit. But when you're trying to do something quickly and you really can't rule it out, even if the data shows that it's not successful, I would use other qualitative metrics, maybe like user testimonials and things like that. So I'm somewhere in the middle of data driven. I sometimes at the beginning of the company was very much emotionally, I was not relying on data that much. I was like, no, this must be wrong. Or so it's nice to grow into a more data oriented person. However, it's not everything that there is. And I think people sometimes find ways to let the data talk instead of really analyzing what the data is telling us.
That's right. You make a really great point about the balance between your gut and your expertise and the data itself. So really data informed decisions is the way I like to talk about it. But here's the thing. You've only used up 70% of your 100%, and those were all four of the questions. So we've got to figure out where this other 30% goes.
So let's increase the first one, the filler, by 10%.
Okay.
And the other one right after it, which was which one?
The planner.
The planner. Let's also add the planner 5%.
Okay.
Actually, let's add 10% to the planner
Okay.
and another and more 10% to the filler.
Okay. So the filler is going to be 50%. Then your planner is going to be 20%. And your counter is 10% and your data driver is 20%. Awesome. Yeah. Fantastic. That's the exercise, right? That's it. So much fun. We like to do it because sometimes it's great to think about these things in the dynamic of what do I need? So there's who you are, There's who your team is. There's who your organization is when you bring the team with you. And then there's also like, what do you actually need to operationalize decisions? Like, how do ideas get brought up in your organization? When you understand that you're 50% feeler, then you can actually articulate to the leaders in your organization to make sure that when they bring their idea that it has these few extra details in it that might make you more inclined to pay attention.
And just to add and build on top of what you're saying, that's 100% so true. And the more you know yourself and the more you know your blind spots and how you tend to operate, you are inviting others to show up and tell you what they're like. And then you can form a best winning team. But also, I think that the more healing that you do on yourself, not that there's nothing wrong. Like, I know I'm a filler. I know that I like some data, but some data I'm not the best person to look at. The more you work on yourself and the more you can show up to work and allow collaboration, because the less you know who you are and how you make decisions, the more your friends will tell you about it and they'll already make up assumptions about you.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Wow. Okay, here we are. We are wrapping up this conversation. I've got a final question for you. You've done this work, you've led these initiatives, you've been blending technology, sustainability, social impact, doing that in the urban living space. If you could give one piece of advice to a leader who's looking to innovate in these areas, what would it be?
One piece of advice, I think: build a small but mighty team around you of people that are excellent, that are going to help you go get what you're looking to get, and then work in short time frames to validate what you're trying to do so you can run fast, apply whatever cyber companies are doing and whatever like big tech is doing on sustainability and on climate, so we can get ahead of everyone else and make our world a better place. Don't try to work differently just because you're trying to tackle something that has a purpose tied to it or a positive impact. The more we work like a good small Silicon Valley startup in the good sense of it, the more we can also innovate the world of the harder social inequality fields to advance the world.
It makes me think about why decision intelligence is so important anyway when you say it that way. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing your expertise and your insights with us, Yael. It has been a pleasure having you on the show. Would you tell our listeners where they can learn more about you and more about Tulu?
Absolutely, Tisha. Thank you so much for having me. You can find us at Tulu.io on our website. You could follow us on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, Yael Shemer. That's my name. Would love, love, love to meet young entrepreneurs or of all ages, actually, and to be connected. Good stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. And to our listeners, we want to thank you again for tuning in. Remember, the best decisions come from great conversations. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate it, share it with your network. And let's keep these conversations going on social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. And until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.